fun, and this and I'll say it again, this is Ann Bryce. This will be a lot of fun. And this is our last meeting until next fall. So thank you all for coming tonight. I always love this meeting because I love looking at the pictures, especially now that people are getting outdoors a little more and moving around. So I did have just one announcement, and that is I had an email from Mark. I always pronounce his name wrong, Pashowski, and he wanted everyone to know that this Saturday, May 21st at 10 a.m., there's a grand opening of the new improved South Fork Preserve open space. And it's sponsored by the city, and he'll be leading a short interpretive walk as part of the event. And he said the city's done an amazing job improving public accessibility with using at the preserve, using contractors and Buda Creek Council volunteers. Taken a few years to work through all the permits, but the improvements are wonderful. New gravel trail, short boardwalk, large creek overview, new single track and seasonal trails through the preserves riparian habitat. 10 new interpretive panels, new trail signage, trail improvements, and natural seating areas. Sounds nice. So if you can't come for the opening, stop by there. I always forget about it. Good place to go. So thank you. There are 6 presenters tonight. And thank you, Ken, for all your work this year, putting this together. This last meeting always seems to be the hardest one, but it's worth it. So I'm going to turn it over to Ken, and he'll tell you more about what's going on. Ken, where are you?
I was muted.
Okay, well, repeat it.
Thank you for joining us tonight for Members Memories. Here we have 6 members, well, 5.5 members, because I'll do the last one. 6 members who are going to entertain us with their memories and illustrate it by their photos. I don't know if anyone has any sketching in it, but either way, they're illustrations. And so, and you can see the order they'll come in. I will not keep this up. I will stop sharing my screen so that the presenters can share their screens as the time comes. And so anyway, without further ado, we'll get started with Joel and Arnold.
Yay.
Stop sharing. All righty.
Okay. Here it is. All righty. Well, I want to take us on a little trip. Let me see what we can do. I whittled this down from a longer presentation that was 180 slides. So if anybody ever wants to see the whole thing, let me know. I'll come over to your house. You provide the pizza and beer. Okay, so I want to tell you about a trip I took with Summit Photography Workshops to Lake Clark National Park in Alaska. And the primary intent was to spend time with the bears. So we fly in from Anchorage. It's a couple hours flight and gorgeous because you're just a few hundred feet above the ground. So you come in and land on the beach in these little planes and then climb into these carts. Actually, these are the luggage carts, but we rode around in carts like this for the whole 5 days that we were there. And this is what a morning roundup looks like. All of each guide has a ATV and these carts that are attached. And our group rode in 2 carts behind our guide. And we just set out early in the morning, just after sunrise or at sunrise, and headed out looking for bears wherever we could find them. And we found them in the meadows, peeking through the grass. This is just a 2nd-year cub. We found them doing their yoga and hiding in the trees. These are 2 2nd-year cubs. And out on the beach, digging for razor clams. And somebody can tell me what kind of gull that is. That would be really helpful at some point. So send me a note if you can recognize what that is. And we really loved watching the mother bears teaching their young to forage for these razor clams. If a mother doesn't teach her cub how to hunt for them, the cub never learns. So it's a really important skill. And they hunt only at low tide. So when it was low tide, we were out on the beach, just like on the it's not really the beach. Anyway, where the water had receded, just like the bears were. And some of the bears would stop by for a portrait and then partake in a game of chase. And then we got on a boat and rowed out to an island a couple of hours away from where our lodge was. This is the island. It's a little island called Duck Island. And I'll stop this so you don't get seasick. And we got off the boat. There was just a teeny tiny beach here that we stood on, looked up, and were immediately transfixed. If you study the image, you can see 2 puffins up here. And then there are lots more, but we just pretty much stood on this beach or sat on the beach or sat on a rock and photographed puffins for maybe an hour or 2. And then we really enjoyed ourselves. This is a bit noisy, but there goes a puffin. There's some more puffins getting ready to fly. And then I spent some time just photographing this one bird at his or her burrow. And the wildflowers were just exquisite. And so were the puffins. These are horned puffins. And it was time to get back on our little boat and head back to the ranch. Actually, it's Salmon Creek Lodge, and look for bears. So we found little Davy and her mother out in a meadow. I think this was our last night there, so we were happy to see them. And you can tell that they are sniffing the air to try and get information about us. And we are chatting away and taking photographs, of course. I'm letting this run so you can see how close we were to these bears. And we weren't this close when we first got there, but they came up closer to us.
I can tell you 100% he's sniffing me right now. Yeah.
These bears are highly habituated to humans visiting.
Chris just went and saved the cart. They're just full operation here tonight.
Okay, and I loved it so much that I have to go back this year and see how these folks are doing, the bears anyway, and see who's still alive and what new cubs have been born. So anyway, that's it. So thank you very much for watching, and let me know if you want to see more.
Great presentation.
Thanks, Joellen. Thank you.
Oops.
Okay, so Cameron, you're up.
Okay, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, hold on a sec. Hi everyone. My name is Cameron Tesher, and I just think it's important sharing a lot of memories. So what I'll be doing is I'll kind of go through each of my excursions through specific areas, and then starting from where we are in Yolo County and ending where we are in Yolo County. So I want to start off, as I mentioned before, right here in Yolo County. So Yolo, obviously, a beautiful area with a large amount of wetlands in the Central Valley to large ridges out when you're around like Puda or in Ray House. And as you see it here, this photo actually back here is actually on top of Ray House Road. It's a beautiful hike. I probably like hiked 5 miles each way from there and back. There was a wonderful ridge migrant day that there with like 30 hermit warblers and 2 calliope hummingbirds and so many other great birds. So I kind of want to bring a few birds in specific. Well, I mean, it was a little bit of a slower winter, but since I'm starting from the summer, I guess there was also a great fall, and it's been so far a great spring as well. So there's a couple birds that I want to bring up as they're actually really fun birds in my opinion, ones that I actually got decent enough shots at. And the first photo is a Mccastin's kingbird. As if you don't know, any kingbird that's not a Western kingbird are very rare in Yolo County. In fact, there's less than 5 records of Eastern, tropical, and Mccastin's kingbirds, and no other. And I believe, and I guess if you include scissor-tailed flycatcher, which is also a kingbird, which is there's 1 record, but this is Mccastin's kingbird, and I actually saw this when I was actually just driving along County Road 103 when I was hoping to get shorebird habitat, and then I see a kingbird out there, and then I realized this is October. Western should be way gone, so I knew I had to check this bird to make sure it wasn't just a Western. And then I saw the bird, didn't see any white on the outer retrices, and then I got photos of it and noticed how dark it was, and I was like, oh my God, this is a Mccastin's kingbird. And this photo here and this bird we got, a lot of people eventually got on it, and this was actually a 2nd county record for where we are. So I was really happy to find this bird. And the second bird is a Vesper Sparrow. I actually spent a lot of time out in this one area in Gwenda where they're known to be. As Vesper Sparrows decline, there's like only a couple areas where you can actively have a shot with them. And this one area was a known wintering spot. And I spent multiple times for 2 winters. And finally in March this winter, I got it. And this was actually my 250th YOLO bird on eBird. So I was really happy to actually see this bird. I first noticed that, oh my God, there's a sparrow. But then when I flushed it, I noticed the white edges of tail feathers, which I was like, this is not Savannah. This is either a Vesper or lark. And when it's perched up, I was eventually saw the white eye ring that you could see right on the bird and the streakings, and I knew it was a Vesper Sparrow. And then let's go out to the coast. I spent a lot of time out here as I'm from Ventura County, which is right along here, as well as many other areas such as Marin, Santa Cruz, and San Diego County. And I had a lot of great experiences, such as seeing a bay-breasted warbler, which is a very rare eastern warbler, fly in from the ocean on the Point Reyes Outer Point Peninsula. And also I had another great experience of chasing the Oriental turtle dove in Santa Clara County, which was a 3rd state record. But I'd say one of my best experiences also was the lesser sand plover. This was a bird that hung around in September, and it stayed for a little while until it was eventually eaten by a peregrine falcon, which is sad. But it was hanging out with a bunch of snowy plovers, and you could tell it apart because of the thicker bill and the darker overall, that leads to having a darker mask and quite noticeable supercilium and all of that. And it just stood way out because it was much larger than the snowy plover. So I eventually, when I had the bird, I was with my friend Frank then, and we just put our cameras on the sand, laid on the ground, was able to shoot the bird with our cameras. And it was pretty much like 30 minutes after sunrise, so the light was right on our side when we got the photos. And now let's go to the mountains. The mountains, since I'm from Ventura, I think the only mountains I really spent a lot of time birding in was Mount Pinos before. So I haven't spent much time in the Sierras until this last summer. And there I spent a lot of time in El Dorado County, near Lake Tahoe, Wrights Lake, as well as the Sierra Valley, where I camped there. And also went up in winter to see the brambling and the common redpolls, which both of them are extremely rare species of finches. Brambling is like an 11th state record. Common redpolls used to be reviewed species. But I think there's 3 birds I do want to mention because all 3 of them were lifers. And they're all 3 actually are regular in mountains. So the first bird here to the left is the Calliope hummingbird. It's kind of a long-needed bird for me as they do migrate through here. But I eventually saw these birds in El Dorado County and in Icehouse Road, which is a known spot where they breed. And this photo was actually taken in Yuba Pass, which is in Sierra County. And then moving its way to the second one is a sage thrasher. Sage thrashers are are in kind of are in the same family with mockingbird. Well, same family with mockingbirds and thrashers. So they have kind of like a mimic like song, and they are and just seeing this bird, it was able to just completely patient, sitting on the middle of the fence. And as you have experience with mockingbirds, I find mockingbirds not that timid. So I was able to get photos right from there. It was a beautiful bird just singing everywhere. And then the last one is a pine grosbeak, which I honestly, before I saw one, I honestly thought it would just only be slightly larger than a house finch. These birds are like grosbeak size. So imagine this like a house finch, but the size of a grosbeak. And this bird was feeding right where my camera was stationed. And the background photo here is actually the Sierra Valley, which where I saw this like sage thrasher. And then let's go all the way to the opposite side of the coast to Florida, where I spent my spring break there with family. And I eventually did a lot of birding here. It was a completely different experience as you get so many other species, and I had so many great life birds there. And it was just like, imagine seeing palm warblers like you see yellow rumps here. It's amazing. But to start off, I would like to start off with two species. One's definitely a lot more common than the other. So the first one is a prairie warbler. I have seen prairie warblers before, twice in California, one in San Diego County and one in San Mateo County. And but they're both in winter, and they were not in any like beautiful male plumage. But when I went to Florida, this bird was in like it was in the end of the end of March, so it started to have a lot of the breeding features, and it had probably the most beautiful song I've ever heard of any warbler, because I was able to hear them sing everywhere, even on the beach, even in mangrove forest. They were just everywhere, of like an upward kind of song that I don't think I've ever heard any warbler sing like that before. It was really breathtaking when you just hear it everywhere. And I'm really happy to see tons of these birds. And every time when I hear it or see it, I just am in glee. And the second bird I have here is a black-faced grassbill. For anyone who doesn't know the ABA standards, this is an ABA code 4, which means this is actually very rare, and it's not seen every year because this is a Bahama vagrant. It's actually it's basically from the Bahamas, and then this bird just somehow showed up into Key West. And I basically eventually got my dad to take me 3 times trying to say, oh, let's go to the beach in Key West. But honestly, all this time was just for this one bird. Because I eventually, after an hour of my 3rd time, I eventually heard the song. And then I saw it perched up on that bush. It was, someone on eBird said it was a mixture of a dark-eyed junco and a brown-headed cowbird. I completely agree. I mean, if you look at the bird, it just reminds you of both combined together. I think that's something that's so awesome about this bird. And finally, let's go back all the way to home. In the background photos, the American crow roost in winter, that roost at Hutchinson Field in the thousands. But I was able to actually, with a couple others, with massive thanks to Frank Fabro and Wental Yang, as well as the Museum of Wildlife Fish and Biology, I was able to actually start out the bird watching club at UC Davis, which honestly was probably a great experience to try to get those who into birding, or those who want to bird more, an opportunity to meet others who bird, and just to learn so much more about birds. We've had presentations, we've had field trips. We went kind of all over the place. I'd say we went from the Bay to Yola Bypass, the Sacramento National Wildlife Refuge, to Puda Canyon. And I think it was just a great experience of bringing UC Davis kids all together to enjoy birds. So yeah, I'd like to thank everyone so much for viewing this. I'd like to thank the Yola Audubon Society for helping me present this. And thank you so much for viewing.
All right, thank you, Cameron. You know, I haven't seen a pine grosbeak in a long time. I probably should have put myself in your back pocket so I could see that puppy. Way to go.
Cameron, what was it? It was black-faced what? I couldn't hear you.
Grassquit.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
And what was the warbler?
Prairie Warbler.
Very.
Prairie, thank you.
Nice. Nice. Thank you, Cameron. Okay. We have Joanne, right?
I think it's me.
No, three. Kurt, sorry. You didn't get. Okay.
Let me, all right. Share my screen. Oh, and one thing, Cameron, I think the sand plover was taken by a merlin, not a peregrine, and I know that because I arrived 2 days after that happened, looking for the bird.
Oh, okay. I think I have peregrine on like some sort of, I think on the 12 gram, but yeah, I think maybe I messed up the birds, but I mean, I saw it when it was there, so I mean, it's gone now.
Let me try that again.
All right.
All right, are you guys seeing a screen?
Yes.
Yes.
All right.
It's like
And
something
now-
poisonous.
And now are you seeing a title slide?
Yes.
All right. So I limited my memories to the calendar year 2021, 2020. Not a lot of traveling happened, a little more in 2021. So we made it to two places outside of California, Yellowstone and Kauai. In July, we had a wedding to go to, a twice postponed wedding, and stopped by Yellowstone along the way, where there are lots of cool things like geysers and other geothermal phenomena. This is not Old Faithful, it's one of the other ones, but just one geyser photo, representative geyser photo. And of course, Yellowstone is famous for its charismatic megafauna like elk. And bison. And Ken wanted us to talk about all the, the strenuous efforts we went to get these photos. So Ken, just for you, this was taken from the car with my phone. And also some not so large fauna. This Wiedemeyer's Admiral. And a few birds, including this nesting family of red-necked grebes. In September, we planned a family trip to Kauai, the island of Kauai in Hawaii. And it was meant to be a family trip before our kids went off to college, a senior and a freshman. So before we became officially empty nesters for the first time, and then the senior came down with COVID right before the trip and had to miss it. So we told him it wasn't very interesting and he didn't miss much, but that wasn't true. But there were Pacific golden plovers, or as they're known out there, Kilauea. And of course, one of the fun things to do when you're in Hawaii is to go up into the higher elevation forests and look for the native honey creepers. And I saw a few of them. This is the only one I got a decent picture of. This is the Kauai amakihi, sporting the latest in fashionable legwear. And this was on the Alakai Swamp Trail. And my other favorite thing to do on Kauai, birding wise, is to go to the Kilauea Point National Wildlife Refuge, home of the Kilauea Lighthouse. And these are nene or Hawaiian goose flying in front of the Kilauea Lighthouse. But the neat thing about Kilauea is that it jets out into the ocean and is surrounded by seabird colonies. So interesting seabirds fly over you, around you, and practically through you the whole time you're there, and you can burn a lot of memory cards in a very short amount of time. But among the things you can see there are white-tailed tropic birds, red-footed boovies, such as this juvenile. Magnificent frigate birds. And red-tailed tropics. And I have thousands more where these came from, although these were obviously the better ones. Moving closer to home, the remainder of these are day trips from home. Lapland Longspur at Coyote Hills Regional Park. Tropical kingbird at Lake Dalwick Park in Vallejo. Least flycatcher in San Francisco. This Sabin's gull showed up on Ocean Beach in San Francisco. Normally they stay well offshore and are always interesting when they show up on land. And when they do, often they're juveniles. So seeing a freshly plumaged adult was quite a treat. And this next photo gives some indication of why it perhaps came to shore. Clearly it sustained some sort of an injury that probably the reason for it coming to shore. Hopefully it seemed to be moving around fine when I saw it, so hopefully it recovered and was able to go back about its business. Bobolink in Santa Cruz. Black-throated blue warbler in San Francisco. And closer to home, back in Yolo County, as Cameron pointed out, I think we can all agree the best birds are all in Yolo County. This is the rough-legged hawk from Road 45. And moving really close to home, this Hammond's flycatcher spent about a week on the bike path behind my house in November. I got to add it to my yard list. And last, but certainly not least, the presumptive Yolo County Bird of the Year 2021, the broad-billed hummingbird that was at Victoria Cross and Thomas's house, and that they graciously allowed all of us to come and see.
Apparently 200 of us.
Sir William Broadbill.
Thank you, Kurt. Wow. And I applaud your efforts. And I know it must have been tough getting that buffalo shot. Great, fantastic. That was great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Righty. Joanne. So that was pretty cool. All right, Joanne.
Joanne, you're muted. Start again.
Oh, I am muted, sorry. Okay, so I traveled up to northern Michigan in February to photograph snowy owls. And Ken requested that we talk about, what our experiences were. And so as opposed to showing, as well as showing our photographs. And one of the things that I would have to say is that it was an incredible experience, but not for the faint of heart, because it was -4 to -9 degrees when we got out every morning. And so, wearing 3 pairs of long underwear, 3 jackets, heated vest, battery run hand warmers in your pockets to defrost your fingers. So it was a fabulous, fabulous experience, but not for the faint of heart. Anyway, so some of these snowy owls, they actually remain on the breeding ground up in the Arctic, but quite a few actually fly south to the northern Canada and to southern Canada and northern US. And so we were able to see quite a few of them. It's an eruption year this year, and that basically created, it's a year when there is an unusually high number of snowy owls, and the significant increase in the snowy owl population, and also their nests and their fledgling rates, their hatch rates, everything was increased. And this occurs when the lemming population explodes. And so last year, that's what happened. So the lemmings are the predominant food for snowy owls, or the preferred food, especially during their breeding season. And the fluctuations in the lemming population actually has a big impact on the ecosystem up in the Arctic, because a lot of different animals rely on them for food, but we don't really understand what causes these fluctuations. So let me see here. Okay, why is it not advancing? Okay, there. All right, so because it was an eruption year, we saw a lot of different owls. I mean, we saw between 10 to 20 owls a day, and they were everywhere. They were on telephone poles, on tops of churches, on barns, on the ground, in trees. They were just everywhere. And you can see, that they have remarkable eyesight, as most owls do, but these guys have very incredible hearing, because a lot of their prey is underground, under the snow. And so basically they can detect their prey, whatever it happens to be, up to 8 inches below the snow, which is really quite remarkable. And you can see in some of these slides, they're hunting. They fly quite close to the ground to hear their prey. And they are just really stunning birds and really magical. And they are the largest bird, the largest owl in North America by weight. Now, the great gray owl is it's taller than the snowy owl, but it's only half the weight of a snowy owl, which is really quite remarkable. So these guys are pretty heavy, and their feathers are heavy to insulate them, of course, up in the Arctic. And males, snowy owls, are about 25% less weight than the females. And the females weigh about 6.5 pounds on the uppermost side, and then their wingspan is about 5 feet. So they're pretty large birds when you see them. And we saw mostly juveniles and possibly some females. And you could tell because they've got all this, the flecking on them, whereas males are predominantly white. And so we did see one male at the distance, but he never came close. And they were just really just fun to photograph. And they've got quite a lot of character, and those yellow eyes just are mesmerizing. So moving to a little bit warmer climate, I went to Ohio the last couple of weeks ago, and I went basically up to 2 different state parks within Ohio, up to Shawnee National Park and Zaleski. And this trip was organized by our guide, Matthew Studebaker, who's really just this remarkable photographer and birder. And he has the most incredible ability to recognize bird calls from great distances. And even when you're driving in the car along dirt roads, he can recognize birds calls. So it was quite a lot of fun. And Shawnee State Park is the largest state park within in Ohio, and it's located in the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains, just along the Ohio River. And it's a great habitat for a lot of different birds. This is a blue-winged warbler, and it breeds in Shawnee National Park, or sorry, Shawnee State Park. And it also hybridizes with golden-winged warblers, and to produce, I guess it's the Brewsters and the Lawrence's warblers. And it's interesting because the golden-winged and the blue-winged don't look anything alike. Their songs are different. They winter in different places. They have slightly different habitats, but yet they hybridize, and they're also 99.97% genetically similar, which is kind of amazing. The next guy is a Kentucky warbler, and they also breed in Shawnee, but these guys, they only sing one type of song their whole life. That's it. That's really small repertoire. On the other hand, these black-throated greens have a huge repertoire of songs. They've been known to sing 466 songs in an hour, different songs in an hour. So there you have it. So we had one day in between our two trips to our state parks where we went to Kilbuck Marsh Wildlife. And we went there to look for prothonotary warblers, which you can commonly find in the understory of swampy woodlands. And we were able to call this warbler in, and we're pretty lucky that he came right in. So he must have been on territory. And it's interesting, these guys are one of the only of two warblers that make their nests in these standing dead trees. The only other one that does that is Lucy's warbler. And while we were calling in this prothonotary, a palm warbler came in, which is kind of unusual because they are not on territory. They breed up in northern Canada, up in the boreal forests up there. And they are one of the warblers that breed almost the farthest north. The only one warbler that breeds farther north than the palm warbler is the blackpoll warbler. So we were pretty lucky to get a glimpse of him. Then we went back to, we met our guide Matthew in Lake Hope State Park, which is in this Zaleski State Forest. And you can see that these forests are really spectacular. They're comprised of, deciduous hardwoods and oaks and sycamores. And they had the red buds that were just scattered about with white dogwood flowers and chartreuse, sassafras flowers in the understory. And then you had this carpet of wildflowers beneath them. So it was pretty spectacular. And here in Zaleski State Forest, we saw this pine warbler, which is, a common species in many of the eastern pine forests, but it's the only warbler that regularly eats seeds, and it eats large quantities of them, and primarily pine seeds. And let's see, this next guy is this handsome guy. He also prefers to be in forests of pine and cypress and sycamore, and he's closely related to he's in the same genus as our yellow rump warblers. And oops, don't want to skip this guy. So this is a worm-eating warbler, and he doesn't actually dig worms like his name might imply. He uses his sharp beak to pick budworms out of the foliage or out of clusters of dead leaves. So we were able to photograph him on some of these beautiful red buds that were blooming in the forest. Let's see, the next one's a prairie warbler. So this is, as you saw from Cameron's talk, this guy is not, you won't see him on a prairie despite his name. They basically like scrubby second growth forests or young pine forests. And there are two subspecies. And so this subspecies is a migratory species, and it's a little more common. But the subspecies that Cameron, I think, saw was the subspecies that breeds in the mangroves of Florida. So that was kind of interesting to see a photograph of that, Cameron. And then this is a Cerulean Warbler, which was one of my target birds because they're just so stunning. And they're a long distance migrator that breeds in mature eastern deciduous forests. And they spend their winters in the Andes in South America. They, and the female Cerulean in the next slide, which I think is just as beautiful, if not more, it has some unusual way of leaving the nest. What it does is it drops out of the nest, but it doesn't expand its wings. It keeps its wings close to its body, and it drops almost like a bungee jumper until it's pretty far below the nest, and then it flies off. And I guess this is just a way of keeping prey away from their nests. So it's kind of fun. And the last bird I was going to show was the Scarlet Tanager, which was such a beacon of red in these deciduous forests, especially because a lot of the forests really hadn't budded out. And so it was really fun to see them, you could see them pretty long distances. And this bird, it's kind of interesting. It plays host to brown-headed cowbird eggs. So it's kind of funny that the cowbirds will come in when the tanagers aren't looking. It'll take a tanager egg out of the nest, drop it out, just get rid of it, and it'll put one of its eggs in the Scarlet Tanager nest. And the Scarlet Tanager can't tell the difference. It basically, even until after the egg, before or after it hatches, it can't tell the difference. And it raises the chicks just like it does its own brood, which is kind of amusing. I guess he's not a very observant bird. And there we actually saw, a lot of different warblers. We saw over 19 different warblers, but this is just to give you a taste of a few of the favorites that I saw. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanne. Wow. What a
Unshare.
great trip.
Yeah, it was. It was a lot of fun.
Yes. And thank you for your narrative was wonderful. I mean, I hope I'm glad this is recorded because I can't remember all the cool stuff you mentioned. So thank you so much. Really appreciate that you participating tonight. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay.
My pleasure.
Dale. Let's see. We have Dale Val.
Yes, good evening, everybody. Hopefully you can see my screen. Joanne, you're a hard act to follow. Got some beautiful photos there.
Oh, come on. I know you're a great photographer.
No. Anyway, so I had some fun as well during this last year, from last summer through to the present. And I thought I'd start out with nothing that's unusual, but just fun to see. And this is around the house. I'm fortunate to live on 5 acres out near Zamora, and we have lots of water baths, and I have a hide set up near a water bath and so forth. So with COVID, one of the things that has given me the ability to do is to, when working from home, take a few more photos around the house than I would otherwise do. And these guys are favorites to see around the place, though you can't see the ruby crown at the moment on this one. And I didn't notice this when I took the photo, but it looks like it's got an aphid. I don't know how well that comes across in its, or what, it's got the leg of the aphid in its bill there, the ruby crown. We see a few species of hummingbirds, but of course the annas are the ones that I see most around the place. And take a picture here or there. This one is sitting on a wire not too far from the water bath, and this one is in one of our apple trees. And yellow warblers are so bright and lovely to see around the place, even though they're usually at my place well outnumbered by the yellow rumped. And right now we've had lots of Western Tanagers that are coming and spending time bathing and enjoying the water bath. And we enjoyed watching them with the binoculars through the house windows. And of course, the bullocks, orioles we see as well, males and females. They tend to be one of the bosses at the water bath. And this was not taken too long ago. We cleared a few trees, have a lot of eucalypts, and some of them are too close to the house. One of the advantages has been that we get more views of these Western kingbirds coming closer to the house. They do nest around the place, but none of them are nice and low like the asteroided flycatchers that sometimes nest on our place as well, but I haven't got any pictures for you this time. Then some little excursions elsewhere in Yolo County. These guys, of course, as you know, are very common, and in the fall, right through woodland, there are a lot of these trees, and I haven't never got around to just looking up what they are, and I'm sure lots of people on the call will know what they are. But it's fun. They're so concentrating on eating that you can get close to them and get some pictures. And in fact, there are a couple at the church that I spend a lot of time at and have responsibilities at, and so that makes an easy place for me to take pictures. And it makes for some, the fall foliage behind makes for some colorful photos and backgrounds, which are nice. The yellow warbler. And while I was there, a small group of cedar waxwings came by, and they're normally a little on the skittish side, at least in my experience. They were so interested in feeding that they were quite close, and so I did get a few close images of them as well, which is fun, and they are so handsome and nice to see. Generally, each winter, I put my name in the hat for one of the Sacramento National Wildlife Refuge photo blind in their system, and take a couple of days in the photo blind. And they are rather cold and uncomfortable, and you get there an hour before sunrise, and sometimes you don't get much more than you would have got if you just went on the auto tour. This last year, I had two occasions when I had a day, it was my scheduled day at Kilauea in the blind, and there were a lot more snow geese and Ross's geese close to that blind than there have been in my past excursions there, and snow geese in their different morphs as well. I did have a video with them all coming by, but I'm not a great videographer, so it will make you a bit seasick, but it was really nice to see them come close by. And of course, if you watch them, they're in large numbers, they're always getting into fights and sticking their neck out and making a lot of noise one at the other to scare them away, or whatever they got in mind. This last winter, while I was at Kilauea in the photo blind, you can usually know when the harriers are coming by, because all the birds get all agitated and flocks will take off and so forth. This guy was picking up some remains of a previous kill, it looked like, and picking up some debris as well. So I wasn't exactly sure. It was a bit far away, but anyway, I managed to get a few images of this northern harrier female. And of course, whenever you hang out by these waterways, you sometimes get opportunity of something else, hunting and catching. Here, of course, great blue heron was not too far away, and it was busy with its eye on this prey. Back in 2017, my wife and I had our 20th anniversary, and we went to Belize and had a wonderful time. My wife is from the Caribbean, and she very much loved Belize because it reminded her in many ways of what the Caribbean island that she grew up on, Antigua, was like when she was young. And we had a great time. So much so that I was keeping wanting to go back. And even though the US Embassy was saying in December of last year, red, don't go, warning, high COVID, high crime, I knew that the crime was nothing to worry about because that would be in the city and you don't go birding there. And actually, they're very well set up. They have gold standard hotels that you go to. And so we had a great experience. So we went, what I did this time, which I didn't do last time, was last time I just rented a car and just goofed around by ourselves and had a look and see what we could find. This time I just got the folks at Black Rock Lodge in the KO district to pick us up, just minimizing exposure or whatever, and spent some time there and just went out on a couple of occasions with the lodge guides, birding guides, which were very good. So this was a tropical peewee, which is down by the McCall River. It would let me get quite close to it. And being at December, there were also lots of birds that, you know, are from further north, as well as the regular residents, dusky-capped flycatchers. And of course, it's a great place to see vermilion flycatchers up close. And this one was taken at the Bird's Eye View Lodge, a great place to go for a ride on their boat, so you can see well, all 4 or 5, I think 5 species of kingfishers and lots of other unique herons. I think we saw all the species of herons that they have in Belize. So had some fun there, but you know, they're spectacular birds, these vermilion flycatchers. That was the last little image I have of it. And we saw from the boat on a couple of occasions some of these forktail flycatchers, but you can see them from the road as well, and you can see how aptly named they are. Beccards, we've seen a couple of different species in the past, and this is a female gray-collared beccard. And then, of course, at these rainforest lodges, they usually put you know, food out for the birds, and so things like tanagers like to come for the food, and euphonias and things like that. This was a tanager I don't think we've seen previously, yellow winged tanager, which are very handsome as well. And this was the olive-backed euphonia. There was another species of euphonia that was coming to the food table at breakfast time, but I didn't get any decent shots of it. These are really handsome as well, the blue-gray tanagers. On a hike, lugging around, carrying the equipment, you know, you usually get lucky once in a while. And this was a white whiskered puffbird we got a look at. And of course, you do see several species of trogons there. I got some decent shots of one species there. And this is the male guarded trogon and the female. And these birds, my wife likens them to oversized hummingbirds because they sort of look like rufous-tailed jacamars. This was a male. And we saw this guy when we were on a hike looking for the motmot. And we did actually get some shots of the motmot, but not happy enough with them to show them. I hadn't seen this red-capped managan before in our previous trip, and they were a handsome little guy. And we saw them doing the characteristic things that they say, following around along with other ant tanagers, following these ants around in the rainforest. Usually it's very dark, but you know, with slow shutter speeds and no movement, you can get some shots sometimes. These annies are quite commonly seen in the more open terrain, groove-bill annies. So a few species of woodpeckers, but this is the one that I got the better shot of, a pale-billed woodpecker. It's about the same size as a pileated woodpecker. Belize is cool also for the raptors. If you like raptors, they have a lot of species of interesting raptors. Among the most common are the roadside hawks. But we did see a great black hawk on a boat trip out to Lamanai ruins, and managed to jump off the boat and go and take some pictures of it. Gray hawks are reasonably commonly seen from the road as well, and this one was photographed from a car. Hadn't seen the laughing falcon before, and I guess they typically hunt snakes, and often coral snakes. It was clearly hunting at the time, but we didn't see it catch anything. And I would never have found this, but the guide who was taking us on the boat trip to Lemani ruins knew where this guy hung out in the daytime, and this was taken from the boat, handheld common nighthawk. And each night on the grass outside of the bird's eye view lodge, these common parakis come and hunt moths and so forth out by the street lights. And I, tried my hand at some very long exposures. I had to take a lot of shots to get any that were half okay. And we were very fortunate to see, as I say, all the species of kingfishers that there on the 2 boat trips we did at Bird's Eye View Lodge. And this was one of my favorite, the American Pygmy kingfisher, so small and handsome. There was also the Amazon kingfisher, and that's the 2 I think I've included in here. Of course, you can see these, lots of species of herons there. You can see these in the US as well, though I hadn't seen them before. And this is an immature boat bill herons taken from the boat. And of course, one of the main species that people go to see there is the jabiru, stork or crane. I think I made a boo-boo there, but I put these together rather at the last minute. This was my favorite and not always very seen, a sun grebe, and it shot across the waterway in front of us. I managed to fire off a few shots and get a couple that were okay. Well, because of COVID, I have not been able to go home to South Australia to see my folks for a few years back since 2019. So in March of this year, I went to see them. And Australia's been locked down hard, and they finally opened up. The ironic thing is that after a week, we all caught COVID because the numbers were going up. So we couldn't see all the family members that we wanted to see. But we had some fun, and we couldn't go to some place that we wanted to go as well. But my brother and I, who's also interested in bird photography, we monkeyed around and did some little photo trips close to where we live, which is where my parents live in Tailem Bend in South Australia. It's the Mallee. These are a commonly seen pigeon in Australia. This is photographed from the window. A pair of crested pigeons. They like the open country, and their wings make a whistling sound as they fly. Peaceful dove is named for its soft call, and this is a bird of the semi-arid habitat there in the Mallee. Hadn't seen, now we don't have hummingbirds in Australia. We do have honey eaters, and there are lots of species of them. I hadn't seen this particular one well enough to get any photos, and we were fortunate to do that on one of our trips to a little conservation park while we quarantined, I should say, in the bush. One of the things I miss over here in way of birds is where are the parrots? Australia's got a lot of nice parrots, and I hadn't seen these ones close enough because they're usually skittish to get any photos, but water attracts birds in the desert, and there was some where we could hide out under camo and get some photos here. The elegant parrot. Mulga parrots are more commonly seen in that terrain, and this is a female. These guys, the pair of them were sitting together and just kind of snoozing in the afternoon. I could slowly creep up to them, and the male Mulga parrot is a little more handsome. Both beautiful birds. The bush is pretty drab and brown and colorless, but you can occasionally see some really beautiful birds. We do have a good range of robins in Australia. This is the red-capped robin. They tend to like the native pine areas, but there'll be in other habitats as well. Not all the birds there in Australia, of course, are super colorful. This is a Jackie Winter, so named for the sound of its call, much like a killdeer, I guess. And I think the last bird I have for you is also a more drab colored bird, but it has a beautiful song, a gray shrike thrush. Thank you for your time.
Great.
Thank you, Dale. Wow.
That
Go
was
ahead, Joanne. Go ahead.
No, that was really fun. What do you just those were beautiful shots. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for the trip.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed it.
Me too.
Okay. So let's see who's next. Hey, it's me for my friend Mike Reinhardt, who couldn't make it with us tonight. So he entrusted me with his photos, and let's get right into it. So he gave me a script, so I'm not just free winging it. Alrighty. So we have, oh, this is the start. So let's go to Mike. Alrighty. So this is Southeast California. So Mike had a destination. Let me get more light. Okay. We did a driving trip to from here south to Borrego Springs and Anza Borrego State Park. He had some time, so he just made a trip down through the valley before he entered in down into Southeast California. So here we see that at Pixley, this is what he found. He was fortunate, so he was able to make stops at Merced, San Luis, Current, and Pixley National Wildlife Refuges. And then he hiked a bit when he got down to Joshua Tree and Big Morongo Canyon Preserve at the Living Desert Zoo and Gardens in Palm Desert. And then finally he was at Anza Borrego, our largest state park. So enjoy. These texts are mine. So there. Yep. Okay, I am being heard, right? Okay, I'm not muted, sorry. Okay, okay, this wants to be a mouse click. And then Pixley? Okay. There we go, Swainson's Hawk. I mean, how close can you get to these guys? Black-throated sparrow, a Joshua tree. That seems to be the only sparrow I could find in those areas. Keep looking for them. There, I don't know if I spent too little time on that. There was one once in Yolo County up at Rich Cut Slough. Okay. I'm sorry. Okay, let's try it again. Now, Mike went to the last week of March and the first week in April. Unfortunate timing since our winter valley migrants had taken off for the north and spring migration had just barely begun in the far south. Mike thinks that the last week of April and the first week of May would be the best times to go to Big Morongo Canyon Preserve or the nearby Whitewater Preserve, both of which are within the Sand to Snow National Monument and near Joshua Tree. This white-winged dove. I just love how this little blue around the orange eye. It's really cool. California thrasher. I love how he was able to get this shot. All in focus and everything. Very cool. Vermilion flycatcher. Yeah, this is in Borrego, Palm Canyon. Oh, gosh. Palm Canyon, and you can hike up in the Palm Canyon to see these guys. Isn't that something? All you have to do is hover over my mouse. And so I think we're coming up on the end. And then in Borrego Springs, we have this bonus creature. Okay, folks, that's it. Thank you. And thank you, Mike, for sending these in. I really appreciate that. So I want to thank all of our speakers tonight for participating, for joining us and participating, and just making this a great evening. I really enjoyed your photos, and I really enjoyed your stories behind the photos, and it was just wonderful. Thank you very much. Thank you. Oh, questions. There was a question somewhere in the chat. Let's see. Wonderful trip. Joanne, someone had asked you something. Are you going to handle that offline? Yeah, you have to, really, don't you? Okay, I'm not seeing any. Zane, did you see any questions that hadn't been answered?
No, I think they all got answered.
Okay, all right then. So anyway, folks, I really appreciate all of you that joined us tonight. And I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. And again, thank you everyone for participating and sharing with us their adventures. And Bryce, President Bryce.
I just want to say, and I am going to be embarrassed Ken here, he never likes putting this together. It always turns out to be one of the greatest shows of the year, and he does a wonderful job as the host. So thank you, Ken. That was a lot of fun. And
Thanks, Ann.
all the photographers.
Thank you.
And we'll see everybody next September. Who knows? We could be in person, but I've gotten enough feedback from people to know that we need to keep the Zoom also going, because a lot of you might not show up if it weren't on Zoom. So we're going to try to accommodate everybody. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, folks. Everybody have a great rest of the. Did someone say something? Okay, I thought I heard.
Joanne?
Nope, I was just saying goodbye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Right.
Have a great summer, everybody.
Yeah.
Good night, folks.
See you. Bye.